1:46 a.m. when Patrol Unit 47 received the final call of their shift. Unit 47, respond to a disturbance at 1637 Hollow Pines Road. Report of screaming heard inside an abandoned residence, possible tendon to 96. Proceed with caution. Officer James Harris sighed, rubbing his eyes. This better not be another meth head playing ghost. His partner, Officer Rahul Singh, chuckled nervously. I'd rather take a tweaker than Hollow Pines. You know what they say about that place, right? Harris glanced at him. You actually believe that local ghost story? Singh shrugged. They say a retired cop murdered his own family in there, then vanished. No one ever found the bodies. The dispatcher's voice crackled again. Be advised, multiple 911 calls from different numbers. No open lines, just screaming. That got their attention. Scene 1. Arrival. The cruiser pulled up to a dirt road surrounded by towering pine trees, half shrouded in fog. The house looked like it had been swallowed by the woods, a 2-story Victorian, rotting and sagging in on itself. Lights from the cruiser flickered across warped siding and shattered windows. Vines strangled the porch rails. A rusty condemned sign barely clung to the front door. Radio check, Harris said. Dispatch, we've arrived at location. No visible activity. Silence. He frowned. Dispatch, come in. The radio hissed, then went dead. No signal. Of course, Harris muttered. We're in the hollow. Scene 2 entering the house. The floor groaned with every step. Dust particles floated in the air like dead skin. Old family portraits lined the walls, faces scratched out. They cleared room after room, living room, kitchen, dining hall. Then, a faint sound, sobbing, from upstairs. Singh gripped his flashlight tighter. You hear that? Yeah, Harris said. Let's move. The stairs were warped and unstable. Each step felt like it might collapse. The sobbing grew louder, but every time they stopped to listen, it stopped too. At the top, a hallway stretched into blackness. Doors on both sides all shut, except the last one, which glowed faint red from underneath. I've got a bad feeling about this, Singh whispered. Scene 3, the red room. Inside the room was nothing but an old police radio on the floor. Cracked, unplugged, not connected. Then it turned on by itself. Unit 47, respond, help us, he's still in the walls. Both officers stared. That's our frequency, Harris muttered. The room suddenly grew colder. Their breath turned to mist. The red light pulsed once, twice, then faster, like a heartbeat. A loud thump behind them. They spun around, just a blank wall. Then scratching. From inside, something was trying to get out. Scene 4. The wall opens. The wall cracked open like dry skin. A shadowy figure began to emerge, tall, hunched, wearing a torn police uniform, with a badge number matching Officer Harris. What the hell? Harris stepped back. The figure had no face, just a dark blur, like a smudge in reality. And then it whispered their names. Harris, Singh, he never left. Singh screamed and fired 3 shots. The bullets passed through as if the figure were made of fog. The radios on their belts exploded in a burst of static, and then the lights went out. Scene 5, the hallway of the lost. When they came to, they were in the hallway again, but it was wrong, longer. The walls were covered in names of missing police officers from decades past. Every door they opened led to the same hallway again, and again, and again. One door showed a nursery, filled with baby cribs, all empty. One door revealed a cold interrogation room with a man in uniform sitting alone, blood leaking from his eyes. Another door opened to a scene they hadn't lived yet. Officer Singh lying dead, his mouth sewn shut. Time doesn't move here, a voice whispered in the static. It loops until you become one of us. Scene 6, the final dispatch. Officer Harris tried to break a window, but outside wasn't the woods anymore. It was black water, swirling kokia, with police badges floating on the surface. Singh was dragged through the wall screaming, and then silence. Only Harris remained. He grabbed the old radio and screamed, Dispatch, this is Officer Harris. Officer down, repeat, officer down. Static. Then a reply. His own voice. Unit 47 still responding. He dropped the radio. Something moved behind him, a reflection in the cracked mirror. It was the faceless officer again. Only now he had Singh's face. Harris turned to run, but the hallway was gone. Only the red room remained, and the door was closing. Scene 7, epilogue. Next morning, the cruiser was found still idling at the edge of the woods. The house, gone. Only a clearing remained with pine needles covering the ground. like no structure had ever existed there. Body cams were recovered, all corrupted, all except one 17-second clip. It played only static until the end, when a whisper could be heard. "We're still responding." It started like any other quiet night. District 19 in Karachi was never the busiest zone. The Gulshan police outpost was barely more than a concrete box. 2 rooms, 1 desk, a rusty landline, and a wall clock that always ran 5 minutes slow. Most nights, Officer Naveed passed time doing paperwork or sipping cheap tea from the nearby daba. That Tuesday night was no different. Until it was. Officer Imran, his regular partner, had called in sick earlier in the evening. "I've got a bit of a fever, man. You'll have to handle the shift alone tonight." Naveed didn't mind. He liked the silence. Or at least, he used to. The landline rang, a sharp mechanical jolt in the stillness. Naveed nearly spilled his tea. "Police emergency, Officer Naveed speaking." For a moment, silence, then a woman's whisper, trembling and hoarse. "He's in the house. I locked myself in the bathroom. Please, hurry." The call cut. Naveed, immediately alert, scribbled down the address that had flashed on the caller ID, House 94, Sector B6. He tried radioing Central Dispatch. Only static. Odd. The radio had never done that before. He hesitated. Protocol demanded backup for home intrusion calls, but something in that woman's voice, it sounded real. Terrified. 2:56 a.m. arrival at Sector B6. The streets were empty. No movement. No barking dogs. Not even a flickering light in any window. As he approached House 94, he noticed the front gate hanging slightly open. The house itself looked forgotten. Faded paint, dead plants, a flickering porch bulb. But what chilled him was that the front door was wide open. He called out, "Police! Anyone inside?" No answer. Hand on his holster, Naveed stepped in. The air was dense, like the house hadn't been opened in weeks. Dust floated in the beam of his flashlight. He moved cautiously, clearing room after room. Nothing. Then a loud thud from upstairs. He rushed up the creaking stairs. At the end of the hallway, a white door with chipped paint closed. Scratches lined the outside of it, like fingernails had clawed at it desperately. He knocked. "Ma'am, this is Officer Naveed. Are you okay?" No answer. He tried the handle, locked from the inside. He leaned close. The air coming from under the door was warm and moist, like steam. Suddenly, the lock turned. Slowly. The door creaked open. The bathroom was empty. But the mirror fogged up, and on it, a fresh handprint, written beneath as if dragged by a finger. "Don't answer the phone." Naveed stepped back, his chest tightened. This wasn't a burglary. This wasn't normal. He turned to leave, but the hallway behind him was different. Longer, darker. No stairs, only a figure standing far at the end, tall, motionless, face hidden in shadow. He raised his gun. "Police, show your hands!" The figure didn't move. Then it tilted its head and whispered, "You came, just like he did." Naveed fired. The bullet echoed, but hit nothing. He turned back into the bathroom, but now it was a bedroom. Rotten curtains, a broken crib. On the wall, photos, old black and white photos of different police officers, each one marked with an X across the face, and in the corner, a rusted police badge. It had his name on it. Officer Naveed, Idibus 734. Back at the station. He made it back, somehow. Disoriented, sweating. He didn't remember the drive. The landline rang again. Same time, same voice. "He's in the house. I locked myself in the bathroom." Naveed froze. The exact same words, same tone, same breaths. It wasn't a call. It was a loop. A trap. He opened the old call logs, dusty and forgotten in a drawer. Every Tuesday night. Same number, same address for the last 7 years. He flipped through the shift reports. Officer Shafiq deceased. Officer Qasim went missing. Officer Talha transferred after breakdown. All had received the 241 call. All had responded. All had vanished or gone mad. And now, it was his turn. Officer Naveed tried to warn the next officer who replaced him, but no one believed him. Now, every Tuesday night, that same phone rings. And if anyone answers, they'll be next. Because some houses aren't haunted by ghosts. They are haunted by memories, by regret, by the echo of men who never made it out. And no one ever survives the 241 call. The shadows know everything. There's something deeply unsettling about silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't even carry the hum of electricity or the whistle of wind. That's the kind of silence I experienced in the house my cousin inherited last fall. It was an old countryside property near the edge of Vermont, hidden behind a stretch of pine trees that looked like they hadn't been touched since the 1800s. He invited me to help clean it up for sale. I had no idea I was about to experience something I wouldn't be able to explain for the rest of my life. It began the first night. The house had no electricity, no power lines even connected to it anymore. We relied on old lanterns and flashlights. As I tried to sleep on the couch downstairs, I noticed something odd. The shadows on the walls, they moved. Not just flickering from the lantern flame, they moved independently. I sat up, thinking it was just my imagination. But the shadow of the coat rack by the door slowly shifted, crawling up the wall even though the actual coat rack hadn't moved an inch. I turned on my flashlight and pointed it at the wall. Nothing. Everything looked normal. The moment I turned it off, the shadows slithered again. The next day, I told my cousin Dan what I saw. He laughed it off, said the place always felt weird since he was a kid. That night, I convinced him to sleep downstairs with me. He brought a camera to try and catch anything strange. At 3:17 a.m., something loud crashed upstairs, like furniture being thrown. We ran up, but nothing was out of place. We checked the camera footage in the morning. What we saw still haunts me. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the shadows in the hallway twisted violently. Not the objects, just their shadows. They stretched long across the ceiling and began writhing like living creatures. Then a voice, barely above a whisper, came through the microphone. "You shouldn't be here." Dan wanted to leave immediately, but something in me needed to know more. I started researching the history of the house. Turns out, back in the 1920s, it belonged to a doctor named Walter Griggs. He was known for conducting sleep studies on patients with schizophrenia. Many of them never left the property. Digging deeper, I found old local reports. 5 people had gone missing in that house. No bodies were ever found. Neighbors said Dr. Griggs believed that if you kept a person awake long enough, you could hear what the walls had to say. On the third night, I experienced it for myself. I stayed up, no sleep, no food, just darkness and that damn silence. At 2:41 a.m., the walls started breathing. I know how that sounds, but I swear, they pulse like lungs. The wallpaper swelled out and contracted. Then came the voices. Faint, unclear, but undeniably real. He's watching. He never left. It's inside the shadow now. A scream erupted from the hallway. I ran toward it and found Dan sitting against the wall, his eyes wide in terror. He pointed to the window. There was a handprint on the inside, but no one had touched it. We tried to leave. The front door wouldn't open. It wasn't locked. It just wouldn't budge. The windows too. No matter how hard we tried, it was like the house wanted us trapped. Dan lost it that night. He started pacing, muttering to himself, refusing to look at any shadows at all. He covered the walls in aluminum foil to stop them from listening. Around 4 a.m., I found him in the basement. He was digging through the dirt floor with his bare hands, repeating, "I have to find his journal." He wrote it down. He told them to guard it. I pulled him upstairs. As we reached the top, we heard the floor creak behind us. Something was climbing out of that hole. We didn't sleep again. On the 5th night, everything fell apart. The lanterns went out at once. The flashlight wouldn't turn on. Pitch black. And then I heard it, a voice right beside my ear, low and cold. "You've seen too much. Now you're one of us." I turned, and for a moment I saw him, Dr. Griggs. Eyes hollow, mouth impossibly wide. His body was made of shadow. He didn't walk. He flowed. I screamed. Dan bolted. We ran to the attic, the only place left we hadn't gone. There, under the floorboards, we found a dusty leather book, Griggs' journal. Inside were dozens of pages of experiments. One entry stood out. "Shadow separates soul from self. Once it knows your name, it follows." At that moment, the walls began to crack. Whispers filled the air. Shadows reached for us. I grabbed Dan, book in hand, and shouted, "We're leaving." The door opened. Just like that. We never spoke again. Dan left the country, moved to Iceland. He refuses to talk about it. I burned the journal, but sometimes at night, I still hear the voice in the dark corners of my room. Whispers telling me they never left. They're just waiting for the dark.